Welcome to the CMO Spotlight, and I'm here with Laurie McGrath, who's the Chief Marketing Officer for Momentus Technologies. Welcome, Laurie.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I'm so glad to have you here. So I'm wondering if you could start by just telling us a little bit more about Momentus Technologies. What is it and what do you all do?
Sure. So Momentus Technology is a leader in the venue management space. So we focus on a number of specific, we call them segments, higher education campuses, convention centers, corporate offices. We have a number of Fortune 500 companies that we've really helped facilitate sort of the future of the work environment, with everyone coming back to work, sort of managing their corporate facilities as a venue, stadiums and arenas, performing arts centers. So our technology is really a end-to-end platform that helps venues manage their whatever their events happen to be at that particular time, for seamless event execution.
So I'm sure that's different from Ticketmaster, that's different from Eventbrite. And so tell me just a little bit more about what Momentus does that's different from some of those other companies that some consumers have heard of.
Yeah, so the thing that's different, I think, in our space, when you have an end-to-end solution, really an ERP, you can think of it in that way, from end to end. When you look at the competitive landscape, for the majority of competitors that we have, they're best of breed offerings that do things like Ticketmaster, other individual functions within a venue. Whereas, so they may have integration between 4 or 5, 6 different best of breed software solutions, whereas the Momentus Technology solution basically is an end-to-end solution that has the ability of all of that in one system.
Got it. Okay. I love that. So I'm curious about your role as Chief Marketing Officer. Tell us about your role and the team, maybe, who
Yeah,
focuses on
sure.
marketing. Yeah.
Sure. So being involved with a number of CMO groups and think tanks and
Mhm.
advisory groups, I have found in my experience doing this for a while that every CMO has a sort of a special niche that they like to focus on. With CMOs, our jobs are very expansive. We have everything from public relations, field marketing, events. For me, I happen to fall into rebranding. So Momentus Technology is probably my 7th or 8th rebrand.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of where I'm always attracted to organizations that are on the cusp of rebranding, not only at the product level but at the corporate level. So I've done private organizations, SaaS companies that are fast growing, all the way up to public companies that have gone through acquisitions. So a number of different types of rebranding, but I was drawn to Momentus Technologies at the time because it is a company, a family-owned company with 30 years, decades, using a platform that is so powerful that it is running venues 30 years later, probably the best in the world. We're worldwide. And we had gone through a number of acquisitions quickly. We acquired one of our greatest competitors in sort of the more SaaS-like environment. I would say that the Ungerbach offering is more enterprise at the time. And then we acquired Venue Ops, which was a leading competitor of ours, more in not really the enterprise, but I would say mid-tier. And then to gain geographical space, we acquired an organization called Priava that gave us a greater global reach. We acquired a risk management to help with risk in venues.
Hmm.
And most recently acquired a company called WeTrack for sustainability. And as you can imagine, having an organization that's been around for 30 years and then adding new companies to that, my mantra, if you know me, is always that brands work from the inside out. So internally, it was very chaotic, as it would be with all of that change and all the movements. And so when I was first called about this role, I looked at it from my rebranding mind of like, wow, what an incredible opportunity with, I looked at the customer base. It's like close to no one out there, our existing customers. The software has been around for a number of years. The companies that we were acquired had their own brand equity. And so I had a brief conversation during the interview process with the PE firm, or the contact that was working on behalf of the interim CEO at the time. Would I be able to rebrand? Like, that's an important piece for me, because I don't think this would be the right opportunity if I couldn't. And I was given the green light. I was given all the support that I needed. We did it in 90 days, which is unheard of.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and we rebranded to Momentus Technologies. And so, long answer short, rebranding is sort of my area of focus. And then once the rebranding's done, then we get into the building up the whole digital marketing engine.
And I think I saw from LinkedIn that Momentus is a little over 400 employees or so. So that in terms of scale and size, I'm assuming you have offices in all around the country and
We
thinking,
do.
okay.
Yeah, we're
Nice.
worldwide. I think we're probably closer to 500 now, and we just
Okay.
announced the WeTrack acquisition a few weeks ago. So we just continue to keep growing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I know you've had a pretty interesting career. I think you've spent most of it in B2B technology in some capacity. I saw that you spent almost 5 years as the chief marketing officer for Texas. And
Yeah.
then before that, 5 years at Inteleer. So I wonder if you could just give us a little bit of how your career progressed and how you
Yeah.
ended up where you are now.
Yeah. So the interesting thing is that I ended up in warehouse management. So I just remember, going to events and convention centers and walking around conveyor belts and Kanbans and just being fascinated by, I know this may not resonate, but I just always saw it as like a symphony. If you had a warehouse that
Yeah.
was really
Yeah.
running well, it was like a well-oiled machine and critical to the livelihood. So, and when I first got into warehouse management, it was around the time of RFID and middleware and, the suppliers, and then e-commerce was just coming on. And that was really my first acquisition. I was with a warehouse management company called High Jump Software, and we were acquired by a division of 3M of all people, of all organizations, because they wanted to add supply chain to their packaging area. And then we, were sold to Battery Ventures, and then I ended up leaving shortly after that. But I think it was at that time that I love the complexity of technology and supply chain. And, I have friends that are CMOs that work in consumer brands, and I just want to fall asleep. I mean, like, I'm teasing. I always give them trouble. Like, yeah, wait till you have to sell supply chain software. I can sell a can of soup. But there's just something about it that I love. And to see that technology grow and build the way that it has been really incredible as well. But then I just kept seeking that. I think once you're in that industry, it's a small industry. We all run into each other at conventions, even today.
Yeah.
But with each of those opportunities, there was always an opportunity for rebranding. So High Jump rebranded to 3M. I was involved in that scenario. Then I went to work at Savis, which rebranded to CenturyLink. And then I went to Amerinet that rebranded to Inteleer. I was very involved with that. And then Texas had such a strong brand equity that we kept the name in Canada and just did a update rebrand. And then I came to Ungerbach and now Momentus Technologies.
The question is are they rebranding because you're coming on board, or are you coming on board because they're rebranding, or is it a mix of both? I think it's probably both, right?
Yeah, what's interesting is I think any CMO that's in charge with, first of all, I see it as an honor for any company to let you come in and suggest the course of their direction. Most notably, when I was at Texas in Montreal, Canada, this wonderful company that had been around for 30 years, that was really a leader in distribution management and healthcare supply chain, hadn't really rebranded in 30 years. And then here, I would always tease Peter Brereton, who was the CEO or is the CEO at the time, that I really always thought of it as, I never took it lightly, that here he had this middle American person coming into Montreal, Canada, that's going to tell him what he should do. But it was the little things, we used the same PMS colors, the Canadian flag, is sort of this homage to what an incredible thing you built here. So there's always something. And what I always say is that a good rebranding CMO arrives at the table as an empty vessel. Because the truth is, Joe, when I took the job at Texas, I could not wait to change the name because the state of Texas, because it was confusing, because there was and I got the research back and I realized there's not a chance that I would change this name, even if the board allowed me to, because it's more meaningful than the research tells you everything, and you have to put your ego aside. So what I did is just took it as far as I could progressively to give it a new refresh, and that was enough. It really did work. So
neat. So I'm curious if there's a piece of advice that you either wish you'd gotten early in your career, or a piece of advice that you would give to a marketer who is just starting out.
Yeah, I mean, my piece of advice, I know you don't know me well, but here I am in warehouse management, as a yogi vegan, that was like this alien that just dropped out of the sky. And I remember being very quiet about that part of, I just wanted to belong with, the other warehouse managers and everyone else. And I just thought to do what I needed to do, I needed to emulate the role models of people that really weren't authentically me. And so if you read any blog or article that I've done in the past, you need to be who you are. When you talk about superpowers, I have always had a superpower that I can sense and feel what a brand is through the research process. Like, even when we were going through Momentus Technologies, sure, you can talk about like, yeah, we sell software, we sell this, but what we really sell? We sell moments and experiences. We sell, that's what we sell. If you're 5 with your dad at a rodeo, or if you're at a concert of Coldplay, or if you're at a convention center with your greatest deal, it's an experience, and that's what we sell. And I just knew that immediately. And I knew that we needed something grander than Ungerbach, because Ungerbach really was the grandest thing in the space at that time. And what's bigger than Momentus, So, but I wouldn't have come to that place if I didn't feel comfortable letting my mind work exactly as it works. And that's what I would say to everyone. Just as long as you're respectful and you have results, you be exactly who you are in whatever way that is.
Makes sense. So I'm curious where you find inspiration for either yourself or for your team.
I find inspiration, honestly, through many different mediums of art. I adore architecture. I love watching couture fashion shows of things that I could never afford, but I see it as like walking design. I love design. I love smart design. I think particularly with what we do, and I think why I love software so much, is that a true gift of a CMO is to be able to take some real complexities and boil that down into an elevator pitch. And that's not easy to do. And so I think you have to be really smart and have a good emotional intelligence to how that will resonate with your target audience. But respect design and whatever that is. Music, lyrics are design in a way, so I know it may seem a little foo-foo, but I do. I literally have a website just on things that I love, and architecture, music, art, all fashion, all of those things.
Excellent. So I'm curious if there's some specific values that you either want to demonstrate to your team, or that you would maybe demand for somebody to join your team.
First and foremost is integrity. Like the truth and integrity and trust, as in any relationship, because I really just see our work relationships as kind of a microcosm of our personal relationships. And I cannot work with someone that I believe does not have integrity. I couldn't. I find myself so fortunate to have worked directly for, 5 or 6 CEOs throughout my past, that have had the utmost integrity. And I learn from that every day. And I think with my team, they know that. I just had a situation today about data, and it's really just teaching people how to treat you as far as what your expectations are. And if there's any gray around data, we don't communicate that. Like, we don't just assume that we're going to like throw, and I'm not saying that they wanted to do that, but it's really important that we say we've got to be on this relentless pursuit for the truth. And those are probably the most important.
Great. So at Setup, we are marketing matchmakers. And what that usually means is that we help connect brands and marketers with agencies that can support them. And so we're not an agency, we're not on the client side, we live in that space between. So we think a lot about that relationship between brands and agencies and marketers and agencies. So I'm curious about how you work with agencies either today at Momentus Technologies or even maybe in a previous life.
Yes, I have the utmost respect for agencies. Every rebrand that we've done with an agency. I'm just being honest here. I prefer boutiques. I have found them to be, little sparks of brilliance if you can find the right one. I'm not really I don't really get into the big part, usually because I'm with up and coming growing SaaS companies. And even if the bigger agencies sometimes tell you that's okay, like you're always fighting for, attention to the Fortune
you may be
500.
the smallest fish in a big pond there.
Totally. So I usually go with boutiques. I just love intelligent, smart people, and I can tell. There's a couple agencies I go back to over and over again. No ego, no hierarchy, great pricing, good results, that I can really sit down and either have a cup of coffee or a glass of wine, say like, for the Momentus one, we were on the phone. I was in Germany, I remember, in the hotel room where we were just going through GoDaddy to get domains, with the agency person, like, let's try this one. Can we get this one? What's this email? And that's really the kind of relationship. The other thing that I would say that's really important is just because an agency is really good at branding doesn't mean that they're experts in other areas.
Right.
That's probably my biggest lesson that I learned. I think that I have these great relationships at this part of the agency, and then they have, like a digital arm. And I'm usually have found in my history that I'm best suited to go with the digital. But I have to have smart, and like you can tell smart immediately, right? Yeah.
100%. And I'm with you that I think usually clients are better off with being a mid-sized fish in the pond, not the largest client for the agency, but also not the smallest, because I've found that means that they tend to get better service generally. But yeah, so I'm curious if there are certain disciplines of marketing that you feel you would like for your company to own and keep in-house, and are there certain other disciplines that you feel it would be beneficial to get outside perspective from an agency?
Yeah, so rebrandings, I would always obviously go outside for product or for corporate, because you need that third party objectivity. Like, even if I am leading it and I show up as an empty vessel because I'm doing my job, you can't really rebrand it's kind of like solving a problem with the same tools that got you there in the first place, sort of thing. So I don't usually do that. There's a lot of things that, like for the PR agency for launch, we hired a boutique PR agencies because we needed arms and legs as opposed to me getting budget for headcount. And they were able to get us to a point where we had good media lists, and then had made some connections, and then I'll usually bring that in-house. Because I'd rather just have someone that I can talk to. I just like that dynamic better. That's worked for me. There's a lot of software that we use not so much agency driven, but we do use agencies for digital reach that can give us arms and legs and experience. I'm all for, with things moving so fast with AI and the dark funnel, and like you almost have to go outside to get people who are in the forefront of all of this. You can't really get there in-house.
Yeah.
So I kind of go with an agency, see how it goes. I'm pretty big on results. I tell my team on a weekly basis, you teach people how to treat you, you teach the agency how to treat you. If they tell you they're going to get you something on Thursday, it doesn't come back till Tuesday, you're teaching them that that's okay. That's not okay. So teach them that they need to hold on to their accountability and their word. So yeah, we dabble a lot in agencies here and there.
Great. So often as marketers, we work with non-marketing functions within our organizations. And I'm curious, how do you demonstrate the value, particularly to those that aren't in marketing and that don't necessarily fully understand the value of marketing?
Yes. Well, there's nothing I love better than when people tell me, I think marketing is the thing that everyone thinks that they know how to do. And sometimes it's very endearing, particularly when I have, names for the new company and, like things like that. So it doesn't bother me at all. I'm glad that people are actually engaged, to be honest with you. The value there is a science, and the value comes down to awareness and revenue. And I think you show that by your dashboards that are extended reach in social media, or top of funnel pipeline, or revenue going up. That's really, or, customer testimonials and customer success stories, things like that. But I don't expect them to understand. I just did a presentation last week, and it didn't even dawn on me that I was talking about SQLs and MQLs to a product and engineering team. And they're all like, I'm just like, I'm sorry, that means sales qualified, marketing qualified. Like they don't really care. I don't blame them, but yeah, so.
I'm curious if there's a program or a campaign, either at Momentus or in one of your previous lives, that taught you a really important lesson, either because it was a huge flop and you learned some really valuable lesson that you carry with you, or maybe it was a huge success and it's something you'd like to emulate in the future.
Yeah, I think, I think you learn more by your flops, because I'm still it still stings a bit because it wasn't inexpensive. And we decided to do account-based marketing when I was at Savvis. And this was really when digital was just up and coming. And I think sometimes, your organization puts a lot of credibility into you and what they think they can expect on the other end. And we completely misread the buyer's persona. And we did not take into consideration at that time, like now everyone knows you got to go to the C-suite, and then you have to get the influencers. They all come together and they make the decision. But before it was like C-suite, like, we didn't even include them. And we included more of the decision makers. And now when I look back on that, it was like, they have no buying authority, no influence whatsoever. And I just remember, at that point, it was just so mostly because it was really something that I was standing in front of, waving the flag about how great it was going to be, and it wasn't. And you just kind of have to own it. It comes back to integrity, and like I misread it. There's nothing I can do. So
yeah. And just try to not make that mistake again in the future, obviously.
Definitely, yes.
So I'm going to wrap things up with a couple of fun questions that aren't necessarily marketing specific questions. One is there a quote or a book or a movie or a sports team or a band that inspires you? And what is it about that thing that inspires you most?
I would say my favorite quote is by Pema Chödrön, who she has a Buddhist philosophy, but she's just, she's in retreat and she kind of lives this very humble life. And so I read a lot of what she writes, because I think she has a really beautiful way of looking at the world. And she just says, you are the sky, everything else, it's just the weather. So I say that to my daughters all the time. Like if they leave or they're having issues with school, I'm just like, you know what, you remember, you're the sky, everything else, it's just the weather. And so I carry that with me a lot. In fact, I have it framed. And I think if you're a music person, the National, I don't know if you've heard of them. You
I've
have?
seen them live many times. I've seen them in live 3 times, and I have tickets coming up soon. They're coming here. Yeah,
No
of
way.
course. Their new album
Oh
is
my gosh.
amazing.
Have the new album?
Brand
I
new. It's
can't.
beautiful. It's so good.
I'm obsessed. Ice
Yeah.
machines? Like, I hate
Yeah.
to take you off. I mean, I can't,
No.
like, they
Eh,
are a gift.
Yeah.
That's design. That
Yeah.
right there,
Yeah.
those lyrics, he's like one of the best. I have
Yeah.
goosebumps because no one I know knows the National.
He and his wife write their lyrics together. Corinne is his wife, is the co-writer for most of those songs, and it's amazing. And you know, obviously they've done collaborations with Taylor Swift and a bunch of others. And anyway, yeah, that's a great choice.
Oh my gosh, I could talk about that forever. I remember years ago, I saw them in Minneapolis with Half Awake, the Fake Empire. That was the
Yeah.
first time I heard them, and I
Oh,
was transfixed,
yeah.
obsessed. I've been to all of their shows, and this album right now is probably, I'm glad he's back. I was worried for a while because he needs to be in pain for him to give us what we need, and he was too happy for a while. He's
Yeah.
back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh
Well,
my gosh, I love that, Joe.
they have a nickname that's the Sad Dads. It's the
Yes, I
Sad
know.
Dads Rock. Yep.
I
Yep.
know. I just cannot. Oh, it's really great to talk to you about that. So
Yeah.
I'm so happy you're going. I didn't get tickets this time.
Oh yeah, I can't
Chicago
wait.
was sold
I can't wait.
out.
It's in August. Yeah, they're coming in August here. So okay, I got one more question for you, which is there a brand that you have always admired but you've never worked on, and what is it about that brand that you admire the most?
Oh, well, it would need to be, I mean, it's fashion. I love couture fashion. So I love, even though it's not my favorite, like if I had the money to buy couture, it would not be the one that I would probably choose because they don't really do a lot of it. But I just love Prada. I love the design. I love the stores. I
Mm.
love it's just every single thing you touch is pretty amazing. And she is so unassuming and humble
Mm.
and private and reclusive. And so, yeah, I mean, I just love, it's kind of like the National, right?
I was gonna say, I think you have a thing for people that are tortured. That's it. That's your thing, Laurie, is you have a thing for tortured
You know
people.
what? You are so right. I like depth. I like supply chain. I like to
Yeah,
dive deep.
I love
That's
that.
where all
I
the
love
good
that.
stuff is.
Tortured is good.
Yeah.
You probably are a fan of dark comedy too, like dark,
Oh,
like
very much so.
yeah,
Yes. And
yeah,
Carl Jung, who is, I don't know if you're a big fan of his,
yeah.
but the subconscious is really, if what doesn't come to light, we treat as fate. I love that. So our whole
Wow.
life should be like individuation of moving from darkness to light. So
All right. So I am thrilled that I had this conversation with such a deep
have you
thinker.
had one like this?
I have not had one like
Okay,
this, that's for sure. No, definitely
good.
not. I appreciate that. So Laurie McGrath is the Chief Marketing Officer for Momentus Technologies. Laurie, thank you so much. This has been
You're
such a
welcome.
joy to have this
You're
conversation.
welcome. All right. See you later. Thanks, Joe.